Welcome back to Cinemax. Today we are going to break down the 2024 science fiction thriller CADDO LAKE, directed by Celine Held and Logan George, and produced by M. Night Shyamalan. This movie came out on October 10th, 2024 on Max, and it is one of those films that will make your brain work really hard. On the surface, it looks like a simple missing child mystery, but underneath it is a complicated and emotional time travel story that connects 4 different people across 4 different time periods. So let us start from the very beginning and break it all down in the simplest way possible, all the way to the ending. First, let us set the stage. The whole story takes place around a lake called CADDO Lake, which sits on the border of Louisiana and Texas. It is a real lake, full of old trees and dark water and thick swamp. But in this movie, somewhere deep in the lake, near a place called Goat Island, there is a hidden time portal, a spot in the water that if you walk through it, you end up in a completely different year. Not on purpose, it just happens. You step in the wrong place, and suddenly the world around you is changed. This is important because every strange thing that happens in this movie comes back to that portal. Every disappearance, every mystery, every broken family, it all starts and ends at the lake. Now the movie shows us 2 different time periods at the same time. One storyline takes place in 2003 and follows a young man named Paris. The other storyline takes place in 2022 and follows a teenage girl named Ellie. For a long time while watching the film, it looks like Paris and Ellie live in the same town at the same time. But they do not. The bridge that Ellie always passes over is broken in her time. The same bridge is perfectly fine when Paris drives across it. That is the first clue the movie gives you that these 2 people are not living in the same year. So how are Paris and Ellie connected? To understand that, we have to start the story from the very beginning, which takes us all the way back to 2022 with a little girl named Anna. Anna is 8 years old. She lives with her dad, a man named Daniel, and her stepmother, C. She also has an older stepsister named Ellie, who is C's daughter from a previous relationship. Anna loves Ellie and looks up to her, but Ellie and C fight constantly. Every little thing becomes an argument, and when things get really bad, Ellie gets on her boat and goes to stay at her friend Claire's place for the night. And on one of these nights in 2022, Ellie and C have a big fight and Ellie grabs her boat and leaves. Anna sees Ellie go and decides to follow her. She gets into another small boat and tries to paddle after her stepsister, but Anna is only 8 years old and she does not know the lake well. She gets lost in the dark water. She drifts into an unfamiliar part of the lake near Goat Island, and she walks right through the time portal. The next morning, Ellie comes back home and discovers that Anna is gone. Nobody knows where she went. The whole community starts searching for Anna, but she is nowhere to be found. Her father Daniel and stepmother C are terrified, and Ellie is completely eaten up with guilt because she knows Anna was trying to follow her when she disappeared. Now here is what actually happened to Anna, and this is where the story gets complicated. When Anna went through the portal, she did not come out in 2022 or anywhere close to it. She came out in 1952, 70 years in the past. She was hurt and unconscious when she landed. A young man from 2003 named Paris happened to find her lying on the ground, picked her up, and carried her to a group of people nearby who took her in and treated her wounds. Paris left her there and went back to the lake, not knowing who the girl was. And little Anna was now stuck in 1952 with no way home and no family around her. Anna grew up in the 1950s. She went to school. She adapted to the time period. Records show she attended classes there. Eventually, she met and fell in love with a man named Ben. She married him, and she had a son. She named her son Paris. But there was a price to pay for traveling through time, because Anna came from 2022 and she was living in a time period that was not her own. Her body could not handle it properly. Every time the water level in CADDO Lake dropped during dry periods, she would get sick. She would have seizures. Bad ones that came out of nowhere. This continued for decades. Anna raised her son Paris and lived as normally as she could. But in 1999, Anna was driving in a car with a teenage Paris when they passed by the lake. The water was low. She had a seizure while driving. The car crashed into the water, and Anna died. Paris survived, but he was traumatized. He watched his mother die in a sudden and unexplained way and could never understand why she kept having those seizures. It stayed with him for years. Now we move to the 2003 storyline. Paris is now a young man in his 20s living near CADDO Lake, still haunted by his mother's death. He never believed the official explanation that it was just a regular seizure. Something about the timing, the way it always happened near water, the connection to the lake, it never made sense to him. In 2003, a woman named C comes back to town for her grandfather's funeral. C and Paris knew each other in the past and had feelings for each other, but when Anna died, Paris pulled away from everyone, and C eventually moved to another city. Now she is back, and the two of them reconnect. They spend time together, and they have sex. After that, Paris disappears. What happened? Paris had been researching the lake obsessively. He noticed that his mother's seizures always seemed to happen during droughts when the lake water was low. He finally figured out that there was something in the lake near Goat Island, a spot where sounds disappeared and the air felt different. He went to investigate and ended up walking through the time portal. Inside the portal, Paris finds a little girl lying unconscious on the ground in a wooded area near the lake. She is hurt. He picks her up and carries her through the trees looking for help. He walks out of the woods and finds a group of people nearby. He hands the child to them and asks them to get her medical care. Then he looks around and realizes something is wrong. The lake is completely drained. The land around where the water should be is completely dry. Someone tells him that the lake has been drained for the construction of a dam. Paris now realizes he is in 1952. He has traveled more than 50 years into the past. He does not yet know that the little girl he just saved is his own mother as a child. He goes back to the lake to try to find the portal again and get back to his own time. But the portal is underwater and it can only be accessed when the water level is low enough to expose it. The lake is being flooded again as the dam construction continues, so the portal is cut off. Paris cannot get back to 1952 or to 2003. Instead, he ends up in 2022, Ellie's time. When Paris surfaces in 2022, he is confused and completely lost. He finds a boat tied up near the shore. That boat belongs to Ellie, who tied it up before going into the water herself to search for Anna. Paris takes the boat to get to land. He is spotted by people, and because he looks suspicious, the police pick him up and take him to the hospital. At the hospital, Paris starts to put the pieces together. He sees a news report on a television in the waiting room. There is a photograph on screen of a little girl who has gone missing on CADDO Lake. The missing girl's name is Anna Lang, and the photograph of her matches the face of the little girl he picked up in the time portal and handed to strangers in 1952. The little girl he saved was his own mother. He sent his own mother into the past. Paris is completely overwhelmed. He also finds his aged father, Ben, who is now very old and living in a care home. Ben has lived his entire life believing that Paris disappeared and was never found. He does not recognize Paris as his son because Paris has not aged. To Ben, Paris is just a stranger. Paris cannot stay in 2022. He needs to get back to the portal. He makes a run for it and escapes from the hospital. He ends up hijacking a car to get to the lake as fast as possible. The car he hijacks belongs to C and Daniel, the couple desperately searching for their missing daughter, Anna. C looks at this strange man who just carjacked them, and she feels something strange. He looks exactly like Paris, the man she loved 20 years ago in 2003, because he is Paris. He just traveled from 2003. He has not aged a single day. Paris gets to the bridge near the lake, and he jumps from the bridge into the water below, trying to reach the portal, but he enters the water badly. He cannot swim well enough. He drowns and dies before he can reach the portal. Now we go back to Ellie's story in 2022, which runs at the same time as Paris's story. Ellie has been at her friend Claire's house when she realizes Anna is missing. She rushes back home and joins the search. She feels responsible. She cannot stop thinking about the fact that Anna followed her that night. The next day, Ellie goes alone to the lake to look for Anna. She gets into the water near Goat Island and accidentally walks through the time portal herself. She comes out one single day in the past, just 24 hours back. She is suddenly in yesterday. Ellie walks home and sees herself. She sees the version of herself from the previous day, coming home from Claire's house and getting into her boat to leave. She watches herself from the day before go out on the water. This is deeply confusing and frightening, but it also gives her information. She now knows exactly where the portal is and roughly how it works. Ellie is smart and she figures out that Anna must have gone through the same portal. She knows now that Anna did not just get lost on the lake, she traveled somewhere in time, and Ellie starts trying to find a way to get her back. During her search for answers, Ellie finds a woman named Celeste. Back when Ellie traveled to her yesterday, she spotted a car with a necklace hanging on the mirror. The necklace looked exactly like a necklace her mother had, the same unusual design. It meant something to her. She broke into the car to take a closer look. The owner of the car, Celeste, caught her and they fought over it. Ellie demanded to know where the necklace came from. Celeste told her it belonged to the mother of her missing boyfriend, Paris. His mother had been wearing the necklace when she disappeared. Ellie immediately realized the connection. The necklace was Anna's. Anna grew up in 1952, became Paris's mother, and the necklace somehow ended up passing from Anna to Paris to Celeste. This is how Ellie understood that Anna did not just go missing, she travelled to 1952 and grew up there and became someone's mother and lived an entire other life. This brings us to the necklace itself, which is one of the most fascinating parts of the whole film. There are actually two identical necklaces in this story. Where did the first one come from? That is a paradox the movie does not try to fully explain. The necklaces exist in a loop. They go around and around through time, and there is no clear starting point. They simply exist within the time loop and keep passing from person to person across different eras. It is the kind of detail that makes your head spin if you think about it too hard, but it also shows you just how tightly everything in this story is connected. Another strange thing Ellie notices near the lake is wolves. She sees wolves near the swamp, even though wolves have not lived in that area for decades. They went extinct in that region a long time ago. The explanation is the same as everything else in the film. The wolves lived near the time portal in the past and accidentally walked through it, travelling forward to 2022. Same thing with certain types of moths that appear in the film. Species that went extinct years ago showing up alive near the lake because they wandered through the portal and ended up in the future. The lake and the portal do not care what walks through them. Animals, children, grown men, it does not matter. If you are near Goat Island when the water is low enough to expose the portal, you go through. By the end of the film, Ellie has pieced together the full picture. She knows that Anna is not dead. She knows that Anna travelled back to 1952, grew up there, got married, had a son named Paris, and eventually died in 1999. She knows that Paris was real and that he loved C, and that his disappearance was not voluntary. He fell into the same trap that Anna did. The lake took him. Ellie goes back to her mother C and explains everything. She tells C that the young woman C once fought with over the necklace, the woman she thought Paris had run off with, was actually Ellie herself, travelling from the future. Paris did not abandon C. He got lost in time and drowned trying to get back. He never stopped trying. C and Ellie, who have been fighting and distant for most of the movie, finally understand each other. All the tension and the anger and the blame starts to fall away. C was not keeping secrets to hurt Ellie. She was just a woman who thought she had been abandoned and spent years trying to make sense of it. Ellie also understands something about herself. She now knows that Paris is her father. She never knew him, but she knows now that he was a good man who loved her mother and tried with everything he had to come back. What about Anna? Anna is gone. She lived a full life in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s. She died in 1999 in a car accident caused by a seizure linked to her time displacement. She never made it back to 2022. She never got to go home. She spent her whole life in a time period that was not hers, raising a child she loved and carrying the weight of being separated from her family in a way that could never be undone. Anna's ending is the saddest part of the movie. She was 8 years old when she went through the portal. She was just trying to follow her stepsister, and it cost her everything she ever knew. By the end of the film, Ellie is the only one of the 3 time travelers who is still alive past 2022. Paris drowned. Anna died in 1999. Only Ellie survives, and she is the one who carries the truth of what happened and makes peace with it. The last important detail is about what Ellie finally accepts. She realizes that the portal in CADDO Lake is not something that can be controlled or fixed or closed. It is simply a mystery of nature, an unexplainable thing in the middle of the swamp that has been pulling people out of their lives and sending them somewhere else for decades. The best anyone can do is know it is there, stay away from it, and not try to understand it beyond that. So what does this movie mean? On the surface, it is a missing child story. But what it is really about is how families fall apart and how the reasons behind that falling apart are almost never what they seem. C thought Paris left her. She was wrong. Paris thought his mother just had a medical condition. He was wrong. Ellie thought her mother was cold and secretive. She was wrong. Every single misunderstanding in this story comes from not having enough information. And every piece of information that was missing because of the lake. The lake created the confusion that broke the family apart. And the lake is also the thing that, in a strange way, holds the answer to putting it back together. The movie is also about the pain of not being able to go home. Anna spent 70 years in a time that was not hers. Paris spent his whole life after his mother's death trying to understand something that no one could explain to him. And Ellie spent her whole life feeling like an outsider in her own family because there was a secret no one could tell her. When all the secrets finally come out, it doesn't fix everything. Anna and Paris are still gone. The loss is still real, but at least the truth is known. And for C and Ellie, that is enough to start healing. CADDO Lake is a quiet and emotional movie. It is not full of action or loud moments. It is the kind of film that slowly builds up its mystery and then pays it off with a lot of feeling. By the time you understand what happened to Anna, you realize you have been watching a love story the whole time. A story about a mother who lived an entire lifetime trying to survive her loss. A father who died trying to get back to the people he loved. And a daughter who finally found out where she came from. That is CADDO Lake. A time travel movie that is really about family. A missing child story that is really about love. And a mystery set in a dark swamp that is really about the things we never get to say to the people we lose. That is it for today. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next video. We will see you in the next one.